Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the time of the day is for you guys, and welcome to the top 5 report review, and of course the announcement of the winner for this challenge. So, as always, right, what today is all about. So the main idea about these webinars is we're going through the top 5 submissions from the particular challenge. And the whole idea about the challenges is this is a place where you guys can learn, improve on your skills, and showcase what you're capable of creating with the different data sets and different visuals and different approaches. So what's the main idea about going through the top 5 is, well, we could just, of course, for example, release an announcement on LinkedIn and say, hey, this is the winner, this is the top 5, and that's it, right? But what we're trying to do is to give you guys feedback. So you can learn from other people's reports and see, okay, what certain things should I focus on when developing the next report? What are certain little things that would help me improve? What may be some interesting ideas that we go through? Because I said, one of the main ideas about these webinars is for you guys to basically have an environment where you can learn and advance your skills. That's what it's really all about. It's not about, just recreating the same report again and again and again. It's about trying out something new. If you fail, well, that's an opportunity to learn something new to do, right? So don't worry about sort of, sometimes failing. It is what it is. Trust me, through hundreds of reports that I've created and also through, report iterations that me and Anj have gone through when building reports for customers, it's not always just a straightforward shot and always a bullseye, right? No, there's usually back and forth with the customer. You're trying to find sort of a balance between functionality and usability. It's not always that simple, but finding the fine line is what kind of allows you to differentiate yourself in the market. So always look for opportunities how you can improve upon your work. But yeah, so we're going to go through the top 5 submissions. And of course, they're going to be in random order because otherwise, what's the point? And once we go through the top 5, we're going to give you feedback on each and every one of these reports. And at the very end, we're, of course, going to announce the winner. So, some suspension. After that, there's going to be a little bit of Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post them and ask us. And one thing that I would kindly ask you here is make sure that you post your questions in the Q&A section of the chat. The reason why I'm saying this is because it's just a lot easier for us to look at the questions through the Q&A section than try to find and spot all the questions in the chat. Because sometimes, when chat becomes a lot more active, it's easy to miss something. When it's in the Q&A section, it's a lot easier for us to go through it, make sure we answer all of them. And if it's not something we can answer straight away, we can always afterwards reach out to you. If you have any questions regarding the challenges, regarding the visuals, the setup, or anything regarding whatever we're going through today, make sure that you also note down an important email, and that's webinars@zoomcharts.com. So if you have any questions regarding the visuals, regarding the challenges, regarding the developers' licenses, feel free to always reach out to the webinars team, and we're going to be able to help you there, right? So don't feel kind of worried about not knowing stuff, getting lost in some things. It's normal. Nobody is, just a master on day one. That doesn't happen. So you go through this step by step. So webinars@zoomcharts.com is an email you should all know and know it by heart. What else? When you're going into one of these challenges, so I'm going to quickly share the screen. Some of you already seen this. Some of you who are new here haven't seen this, so I'm going to quickly go through here. So a few things for you guys to know, right? Every single challenge is also archived. So for example, if we go down here, you can see these are the previous challenges. For example, last month for Onyx data, if you open it up, you can see that's the winning report, and there are all other submissions from all other competitors. If you want to get the data set, you can always also download the data set still, play around with it, and create your own version of the report. Sure, you're not going to be participating in that particular challenge because it's closed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot use the data set for training. One of the biggest challenges I can tell you from my experience is usually trying to find data sets to play around with. You can, of course, go with randomized, completely normal distribution data sets, but random is random. What's the key? What's the key, basically? Let's say key topic that you're looking into, or let's say the insight that you're finding, it's random. There's no logic in it. It's completely all around the place. So feel free to look at these. Every single one of these reports, if you open it up, you can also download the PBIX file, which is an amazing feature because it allows you to see exactly how the creator has developed things. You can see the measures, you can see the formatting options, you can see everything he's done with the report to get to this result. If that's not enough, never forget that you can also reach out to them directly on LinkedIn and ask some questions to them. I know a lot of people are going to be, for example, a little bit afraid of asking and saying, okay, what happens if he doesn't respond? Well, he doesn't respond. Worst case scenario is you don't get an answer, right? But never be afraid of asking questions. We always learn from the information that's available to us. If that's not enough, you can also go under resources, report examples. There's a bunch of different materials. There's different blog posts, webinars, video tutorials. There's a lot of information we provide to you guys. Make sure you utilize this, right? Don't be afraid to go through those resources. I know there's a lot, trust me, I know, but you have to learn somehow. So go through those, make sure you find something interesting and useful, and basically apply that to your next report. All right, I think that's enough about an intro. These challenges happen every single month. And if you do have any questions, like I said, just reach out to us and we'll be able to answer those questions. Without further ado, I think, Ansh, we're ready to go through the top 5, right? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So the first submission that has gotten into the top 5 for the July submission of Onyx Data Challenge, it comes from 𝗣𝘃𝗃𝗏. So congratulations to you. And let's open up the report and see what the developer has created here. So a few things that I notice here that I like about the report is the fact that there is some sort of a structure to it, right? These are not just randomly sprayed out visuals without any canvases, without any spacings or anything like that. There's a structure. And if I switch between the pages, for example, we can see that the essential layout and structure of everything kind of stays the same. So for me as a user, it's easy to understand where to focus and where things are going to be located. Like KPI cards are over there. There's going to be some different slicers from different dimensions. So I kind of understand what's going on. If that's not enough, the developer also has, of course, included some information overlays describing certain things and certain items, and of course, a reset button. Do not underestimate the power of a reset button. You might think it's not, very, for example, hard to create one, but it's one of the most crucial elements in every single report because it allows you to quickly get, for example, if I drill down here, I select something here, I select something on a timeline, it allows me to quickly get back to that initial state. It's a simple one click, allows you to get back to the initial state. Now, what else? Few things that I, for example, noticed within the report. One of the things that caught my attention straight away, and this is why you always play around with your reports on different screen sizes, that's one thing. And the other thing is always double check how your report looks when it's published. So for example, in this case, you can see we have these 2 buttons right here, detail overviews. So for example, if I click on it, that actually calls out a graph visual. The functionality is great. I like what you did here. But the one thing that is always going to bug me till the end of days is there's those 3 little dots. Because it probably says details, but because of the size of the button and the scale of the report, it gets cut off. So I'm getting those 3 dots at the very end. So increasing the size of the button a little bit would help here. I wouldn't have those 3 dots and would be a lot more, pleasant to look at. As for these 2 buttons, also minor adjustments, but there is a little bit more padding on top than there is on the bottom. You can see on the bottom there's no padding. At the top there's padding. So what happens is visually it seems like the text is basically kind of squashed down, and it feels like it's sticking to the bottom row. So to kind of, I would say, to make things more fluid or fit in nicely, I would increase the padding on both sizes or just increase the height of the button a little bit, just to make sure that everything feels nice and neat. As far as the visuals go, I like the timeline approach that allows you to quickly kind of select a particular timescale. So for example, if you're looking at a couple of days, you just simply create a selection on the x-axis. Now, the one thing that I would probably reconsider is this visual. I like the idea that what you did here is essentially you created for specific management, you want to see, okay, if this particular department communicates to other departments, how does it split? Right? The idea is great. But because of all of these colors, it's very hard to actually read the chart. So I would probably go with either, top 5 departments that they're communicating or something like that, that just wouldn't give me as much of a rainbow there. So that's one of the things. If we go to the second page, one of the things that I really liked, and this is something that I've been noticing a lot more lately, is, for example, you most likely have some sort of a timeline, and this is what we gave you in this challenge as well. So timeline as is, right? You have month and you have days, but then you also have the ability by using field parameters to switch to a different visual. In this case, that's actually a bookmark. You're switching to a different visual, and instead of focusing on the whole month and different dates, you're actually focusing on days as such. So those are 2 different approaches, 2 different analyses, and that allows the user to kind of look from 2 different perspectives while still keeping everything in the same position, just switching between one or the other, right? So I really like this approach. Other than that, what I like is that you do have different drill downs available for the visuals. So the user can slice and dice through different dimensions. You can always reset back. The one other thing that you probably heard me say before is be careful with your cards and try to avoid cases where you end up with a blank in a card. Most likely it's a 0, right? But visually blank just stands out straight away. So by creating a measure that essentially would say, hey, if it's a blank, return a 0, it would look up visually a lot more appealing. But yeah, those are the main comments from my side. Ansh.
Yeah, well, I will try to cover it from my side now. So the first comment I have, I was really impressed with first impressions this design gives. When I open it, the first impression is, okay, this is nice. I have no idea exactly what it's showing me yet, but it was really pleasant initial experience. So that's a really good thing. I kind of enjoy that you went for toned down pastel tones. It's really cool. But here comes the challenging part, which I noticed throughout this report, is how to call it, the meaningfulness of those colors. So the palette itself is great, but I think, for example, in the negative, neutral, and positive sentiment thing, it is really, really strange that the positive is yellow and the negative and neutral is very similar in color. It's quite confusing, and it goes the same throughout the report. So I would be very careful playing with such palettes. So you choose grades from within the palette to assign to the specific thing, so it's easy to read. So you, at the first glance, you know what is a positive, what is a negative. Here, without the legend or reading the tooltip, I would be clueless. That is one thing. As Ives mentioned, it's really nice to see have very structured blocks in the report. It makes it very easy to use, even when you go throughout the pages. But what I would like to do slightly differently is the navigation block, because now it looks like it's just floating somewhere in the air. The visual blocks are very well grounded, but the navigation looks somehow not enough important. So as I was mentioned, maybe adding some paddings around would help, but I would give even more weight, and I would group all of the navigational elements even closer, including the reset and help and those page navigation things. What else? I have some notes. Yeah, regarding the colors, another thing is that nice palette is nice, but you need to be very cautious about your palette matching the background colors you're using. Because in the first page, for example, those light pink colors, if you would check it in black and white, and a lot of people have partial visual visibility disabilities, they wouldn't be able to actually see any difference between that pink and that gray in the background. So you need to think not only about the nice colors, but the contrast as well. That's another thing. And the third thing regarding colors, yeah, I know I'm quite a bit repetitive about the colors, but the palette matches for different things very closely. For example, In the second page, this page negative and neutral sentiment is very similar to device segment and workday segment on the bottom donuts. So I think this is a part where it's nice to use separate spectrums from the palette for each of the categories blocks. And pretty much that's it. It was really pleasant to look at it, but don't think I'm a very negative person. I just always like to make it more perfect.
Hey man, the devil's in the details, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so congratulations to you once more. You got into the top 5. Whether or not you're a winner, you'll know a little bit later. So the next submission that has gotten into the top 5 comes from Sweetie Antonio David. So congratulations to you. So let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So the one thing I liked about the report itself is that there's some sort of a separation between navigation and the report itself. I wouldn't necessarily say that I fully agree with the placement of these buttons. I would probably kind of add them to one of the sides, because now, similar to how Ansh mentioned it for previous report, they seem like they're kind of floating in nowhere, right? Somewhere in between everything. So that's one thing. As far as these cards go, and this is something that a lot of you are actually doing in your reports. I don't know if you're not paying attention to it, but I'm guessing you're using the new card visual, which allows you to quickly create multiple instances and style them simultaneously. But one of the things that happens in these is, for example, you can see it right here. Every single one of these cards basically has like 50%, 60%, 50%. Okay, this is okay, like 20%. But there's a lot of room which is not even utilized whatsoever, which makes it feel like, yeah, maybe place this in the center, make it feel nicer. It's small little details, but trust me, the first impression is the one that's going to last for the report, right? You can try to recreate it, but the user has to like it when he opens it up. So I would probably place it in the center a bit more and make the cards more noticeable. Like the numbers itself, I would probably make a little bit higher, in a higher font level. And the other thing is, we talked about this in another webinar, the naming for the cards, I would probably try to avoid any underscores. Make it short and precise, right? I know why you're doing this. This is what a lot of developers do, right? We try to avoid any spaces because spaces can do weird things when it comes to calculations and so forth. But when it comes to naming and visual stuff, you don't really want to have underscores. It's a small little thing, but again, people are going to notice this. If we go around different other pages, I like this approach where you went with, for example, different pages, and after that, you actually went with tab system. So you're adding actually more information in the same page. The only thing I do not like about this approach is there is no way for me to tell which one of these is actually selected currently, right? Just change the way that the active button looks. I'm guessing in this case, these seem to look like the individual bookmarks. So you would have to create basically an active and inactive state and switch between them. If you're using a bookmark navigator, there are different states for buttons. So there's selected, there's default, and try to differentiate the way and how they look. Because, if I look away for a second and you suddenly change between these pages, it's really hard for me to straight away understand, okay, which one of these have you actually opened up? So I kind of have to go through all of them and try to guess which one is visible currently. Sorry for that. So yeah, that's one of the things. I like that you utilized conditional formatting here, which is great. If we go for these pages, you can see we have the ability to drill down and everything. But one thing that I would probably kind of switch around here is, I think it was in I kind of lost my thought process there. I'll maybe remember it in just a second. I know I wanted to say something specific about this one, but it happens. I also forget stuff. So I'll get back to this a little bit later. The information overlay, which is great. but be careful when you're creating informational overlays with the states that you're saving at that particular time. Because, for example, if I go for topic analysis, and if I click on it, you can see that it took me to a different sub page, like topic analysis. These three visuals, click on info, takes me to a different one. So you're kind of making the user go back and forth, trying to figure out what's happening there. And if I close this, I again have to go back to topic analysis. You're trying to create a report which doesn't force him to basically do unnecessary clicks, actions, guessing game. You want to keep him wherever he is at that particular point of time. It's tricky, trust me. Me and Ansh, one of the most difficult ones, reports that I think that we created was for a customer which had, I know it's a little bit overkill, trust me. He had 46 different pages, and we had to create a navigational sort of menu that was popping off on the side with different bookmarks depending on which page is selected and so forth. And at that point, bookmark navigators didn't exist, so those were all individual bookmarks. I know it's annoying, trust me. We've gone through it, but it's the experience that you're creating for the user, right? You have to think about how the end user would go through it. The idea itself is very good. There's nothing against that. It's just, again, those small little details, they very much define how things happen. And I like this, what you did here at the end, which isn't necessarily analysis as such from the data set, right? But this is some of the sort of conclusions or next steps recommendations that you created based on the data set that you had provided. So overall, it's a good job, great report, just small little details. Ansh, from your side?
Yeah, well, I agree with most of the things that you said, but one of the most interesting things in this report for me is the contrast and accentuation for the things, where I think also things went a bit too far, because if we think about making a backbone structure for the report, important things comes first, and everything else is like additional explanation. And here, to my understanding of the usability and visuals, I think the header is actually fighting over the KPI cards and the navigation on the left. So it's a bit confusing at the first glance. You really need to know where to look. So I would probably give more weight to the KPI cards and navigation instead of the header itself, but that's a not minor thing, but nothing like globally bad as well. Here I have a similar comment to the previous report. There are slightly confusing colors used because they are overlapping between different categories in the visuals. So this is like a recommendation for everyone. Use same meaning for each color grade throughout the report. So it's not like dark blue in one page means category 1, you go to the second page and all of a sudden it means something negative, for example. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, from like pure visual structure of this report, I really don't understand why in one page there are those blocks with shadows hovering over the others, and in second page there are none. And also in the second page, for some really not sure why reason, but there is some elements blocking the visuals on the bottom right. Yeah, in the first tab. I'm not really sure what's the purpose of this element blocking the visual, but maybe there was some big idea behind it. But I would avoid any of the elements actually overlapping in the report, because that can cause really strange interaction behavior. And the biggest issue in this page, as I already mentioned, you really need to highlight if there is this tab navigation or any other navigation system, like on your left, you need to highlight what's selected, because even on the first glance, when you enter this page, you have no idea that you are actually in one of the tabs. You might think it's just going to open something else, or so that needs to be made more clear. But in general, this is it. Yes, from my side.
All right. So congratulations again to the author. It's a good report. Just, again, small little details. There's nothing major wrong with most of the reports that we go through, guys, right? But the small little details, I think you can agree with me, in every sort of situation in life, it's the things that matter. because that's how you create the first impression. All right, so the next author that has gotten into the top 5 is 𝗤𝗏. Congratulations, 𝗤𝗏. And 𝗤𝗏 has actually, for those of you who are new here, I want to just put this on from my side, is 𝗤𝗏 has been with us for almost a year now, participating in every single challenge. You might think, okay, that's a lot of challenges. Sure. But what I've seen with this is her skill level is increasing with every single one of them. And that's what the challenges and this whole thing is all about, right? We're allowing 𝗤𝗏 to create these reports, we're giving her feedback, and she's advancing and creating new reports that are looking better and better. So I just wanted to personally say congratulations, 𝗤𝗏, and this is a great report, so let's take a closer look at it. So if we open it up, the one thing that I like is it's simple. There's nothing too overcomplicated. You have KPI cards right here at the top, and then you have your visuals, which basically allow you to tell the story and or drive the narrative of it. You have the navigation right here at the top, where you can switch between overview, communication, device training, sentiment analysis, and so forth, right? And also like that you have an overview first, because you kind of most of the time just want to see, okay, what's the situation overall? And then you want to focus on certain things. That's what kind of nowadays reports are moving more and more towards. And that's what ZoomCharts with our visuals, that's what we're trying to kind of deliver to the audience, is that you can always start off with an overview and then drill down into those details and focus on small little aspects. So I like the whole layout and everything about it. I like what you also did here is you increased a little bit the highlight with the timeline visual. So the timeline visual actually allows you to highlight Saturdays and Sundays. And the reason why I like this approach is because it also emphasizes or forces the users to kind of think about, okay, why these dates are, with that particular highlight. Even though you have some data within them, it just means that you're working on weekends. Right, these email exchanges were happening over weekends. So if you have abnormality in open rate or just abnormal low amount of emails, that's because most of the time there's no emails their time. So it's just something you can visually see there. So I like that. If we go through different other pages, for example, for communication network analysis, the one thing that I would probably reconsider here is, especially in the first glance right here, right? If you look at the graph visual, I like the idea about it. So it shows you how different departments are communicating with each other. You're utilizing also different value formats. You're showcasing how many emails are coming in, how many emails are going out. So you can kind of see the exchange rate from there. But the one thing that kind of confused me a little bit is the auras. You're already separating everything by color, right? That showcases the department. There's no added benefit of having auras here. Unless I completely missed something, I just don't see the added value of having auras there. Don't try to utilize the functionality of the visual just because it's there, right? The functionality needs to support the use case and allow you to tell the story a little bit better. So that's one thing that, at least on the initial glance, seems like it's a necessary addition, right? The colors would be sufficient. But what I like about this one is that you have the ability right here at the bottom right to also choose different departments. And you can see how the email kind of communication is exchanged between the different departments. So right now it's just loading in the data. We can see there's a little kind of wheel going there, loading in the data. So this allows me to see, for example, how different departments are actually communicating. So for example, even though I just selected development, sales, and legal, we can see that there are some other departments being involved. Why these nodes are showing up is because certain communication doesn't happen directly. So for example, I selected product development and I selected legal. You can see there's no direct connection between them. They're communicating through the IT department. So the graph visual also allows you to kind of showcase, okay, even though there's no direct connection between them, there's sort of a mediator in between who's working as basically a transfer of the information between the two departments. So it's an interesting view that you're getting here. And here you just see the same thing, but on the employee level. That's why you just have a lot more nodes, because those are individual employees communicating. So here we can see also, for example, the so-called outliers or the denominators. We can see the people who are communicating or receiving most of the emails. So that's also something that you could focus on when, for example, doing a similar analysis. If we're going to the next page, here I didn't have any particular comments. Sentiment analysis. 𝗵 is probably going to tell more about the colors, but I just like the fact that everything is synchronized. Right? So if one color means one thing, it means the same thing all over the place. The only other thing which I noticed here was, for example, if I select these years, it's again very small little thing, but for example, you can see we have these different sentiments based on the KPIs. But if I select also a department, I again can come across a situation where I have blanks. A simple measure that returns instead of a blank a null or a 0, I think would be very beneficial here, because just visually would look a little bit better than instead of blank, it would say, 0%, because there's no email exchange there. But that's just me, right? What do I know? The information overlay is there. It's there for every single page. And the only other thing I would say is the cards are great. They're positioned very well. The icons allow you to kind of also focus on them. But again, something I mentioned for one of the previous reports, try to maybe center them, because right now you have a lot of unused space. Other than that, it's a great report, Tony. Congratulations. And 𝗵, any comments from your side?
Oh, yes, there's definitely going to be some. So, on a positive note, it was really nice to see this structured report with a very highlighted navigation on the top and quite well used space in this report. So there are some slight comments from my side regarding colors as well. And two main things, one which is more crucial than another. One thing is that, especially on the first page, you can see it even more, that the same color is used for different things. Like here on the bottom, you have darker green for workday and lighter green for a weekend, but on the top on the timeline visual, it actually means a different thing. One is for open rate and another is for unopened. And this follows through the report in a couple other places as well. I do understand you coming from a monochrome color palette of the report, but if you are adding meaning to the colors in other places in the report, I would stick to having the same meaning for all of the colors. There might be one neutral color, which is not directly assigned to anything else, and that views out throughout the report. But this hasn't been the case in this report either, because in one of the pages, it all of a sudden turns into the purple. That is one thing. Second thing regarding colors, this is not only for this report, but all that are using more dark or vivid colors for the canvas background. There's one small detail that you can do to make your report look much better in publish to web, is change the wallpaper color to the same as your report background. Because like right now, 𝗵𝘃𝗄𝗏 has it opened it and presenting. It has this white space around it, and it kind of ruins your mood and color palette of the report. Otherwise, it would be filled with the same color. It would be more immersive. Second thing, I know that doing more minimalistic, like accentuation on the blocks is very difficult. But in this case, I think those borders are unnecessary, and it would look cleaner without them, including the KPI cards on top, which, as I've mentioned in some of the previous reports, it has, as it looks, a lot of unused space around it. But if it wouldn't have this border around, you wouldn't notice it really. It would like naturally distribute this area between them. What else? Nothing negative to say. I quite like it. Probably because the color palette is something towards what I like, and I think 𝗵𝘃𝗄𝗏 as well. We are a slight fans of darker themes every now and then, but it's not easy to please everyone. There's a lot of haters for dark reports. I know that. That's why, as we have mentioned in some videos before with 𝗵𝘃𝗄𝗏, it's nice to have like a switch between light and dark theme if you want to please both worlds and any scenario, like, I don't know, bright projector screens or dark developer rooms in the middle of the night. So that's something to keep in mind.
Exactly.
that's pretty much it.
It's the same story as with the donut chart, right? Usually in data visualization, it's sort of a visual that has either a love or hate relationship, just because, you know, people misuse the visual heavily, so that's why it has a lot of bad rep. It's not a bad visual if you use it correctly. Same goes with colors, dark palettes, and everything. If you use them correctly, they're very beneficial. And one thing that I wanted to quickly show to you guys as well is, let me bring it from the other screen right here. This is what Ansh was talking about when he mentioned the wallpaper color. So these edges right here is where the physical report ends. But as you can see, by adjusting the wallpaper color, which is something you can do on desktop and also in the services, you can see that this essentially is as an extension of the page. So you don't see those white lines on the side of the report, which, for example, you can see right here. Again, these are just small
one
little
thing
things.
to keep.
Yeah,
one
sure.
thing to keep in mind, like in this report, you have this. Not sure what that color is to be called correctly. Something dark turquoise color. It's gonna still separate it. So in this report, it's this sideline, and others there are some elements which are touching the side of the report. When you are designing the layout of the report, keep in mind that if you are going to continue this background on the wallpaper as well, make sure that your elements are not cut by the end of the canvas to have a like nice clean look throughout. But it's very easy to check afterwards.
Make sure you just don't squeeze it to the very side of it. That's the main thing. Leave a little bit of space for it. All right. So congratulations to you for getting into the top 5. And I guess we're moving on to the next one. So the next submission that has gotten into the top 5 comes from Abhinandan Pawar. So congratulations to you. And let's open up the report and take a closer look. So from this report, one of the things that I noticed, and this is something that you guys, like I mentioned also for the first report, the reason why you have to play around with different environments, even though you developed it, for example, in Power BI Desktop, you want to publish it to your own workspace just to see how it works in services and look at the full screen, because this right here is happening, I'm guessing, because of the scaling. My initial guess is probably these were side by side, which means it's a lot easier to kind of select from and to date. And there's usually some sort of a line that allows you to select where exactly the time period is. And it just disappears right here, right? That's why you always play around with these. So for example, right now, I would have to kind of figure out that this is from date and that's to date, right? But again, easily fixed. The one other thing that I noticed here is if you went with kind of the color palette right here, right, with sort of the blue green with that kind of color palette, suddenly this chart, maybe it's just me, but this feels completely out of place suddenly. It just completely different color palette, sort of similar shading, but a completely different one that kind of throws off and brings me to look at it the most, even though clearly, based on the size of it, this is something I should be paying the most attention to, right? That's one of the things. The KPIs are here at the bottom, which from my experience isn't a great approach, primarily because you want to make sure that the information that user is supposed to see is number 1. And you've probably seen this in other LinkedIn posts, and recently also there was actually a discussion on LinkedIn regarding sort of the Z pattern, right? It's the same way as you would read the book. You start from the top left, and then you go through the page in this sort of manner. Right now, it feels like the KPIs are, I have them there, but they're not that important. So if you want to skip them, you can easily skip them. So that's one of the things. The ability to select employees right here, which is, I'm guessing, a table visual, is a great approach. It allows me to compare, for example, specific employees if I want to. The only other thing that I would probably do here is maybe add also a slicer at the top with the ability of searching. Because right now, for example, if I wanted to filter out a particular employee, I have to physically scroll up and down, find that particular employee and, select it. So it's one of those things that I would probably take a closer look into. The information overlay is there, which is okay. There we go. It explains everything. As for this one, the very first thought process I had for this is I thought that it's a button, but it's really just an informational block that tells me that selecting an employee allows me to see a detailed analysis for him. or probably style this slightly differently. Then you have the slicers for desktop and switching between desktop and mobile view, clearing all the slicers and everything. And of course, you have some ability to drill down and focus on certain aspects by selecting a subcategory if it's needed. Trying to do things a little bit too fast, you know, happens. I'm too fast for it, so what can I do? Allowing things to filter down, select certain things. So the cross-chart filtering is there. That's all good. Other than that, I would probably say that one of the things that I would be cautious about is sort of a situation that I'm in right now. This is a clear all slicers button, which clears the slicers, but it doesn't clear the selection that I've made on the report. So this report is missing the reset button, which allows me to get back to the initial state very quickly. So those are the main comments from my side. Ansh?
Yeah, there are multiple things to comment here, and some of them I have already touched upon. I really do think that the core of the usability is intuitive navigation throughout the report or application or whatever it might be. And as he mentioned here, it's like spread out a little bit. So we have controls and filters on the left. Then we have the KPIs on the left. Some part of filtering elements are throughout the report. And what I really would like to change the most in this report, and it's not a negative thing, just in direction where we as a ZoomCharts, as a visual company, are going to make things easier. I really do think a couple of the KPI cards and the slicer could easily be switched into a simple ZoomCharts visual, which would actually allow you to select and see the values of, for example, like the devices much easier. I'm really not sure why you need a separate slicer and then KPI card showing those values. That would be, in my understanding, would be a donut chart doing that. And also same goes actually for the date period selection. As some of the reports we have seen today, they have been using time series or timeline visual. Then you can show this email communication trends on the timeline and also use it as a very easy and nice drill down filter selection tool. Those would be the main things which I think I would change and do differently. And as of the more minor things, there is a huge attention grabber in this report, and it's not the data. To me, it's those two logos on the top left. I do appreciate that people are appraising the organizers of this contest, but I really do think they are grabbing too much attention. They either need to be smaller or they shouldn't be there at all for the sake of the reporting experience. But that is up to creator for sure. And second thing is, and this is not only for this report, that goes in general as well, size does matter when it comes to fonts. So the bigger the font size we use, the more emphasis on that part is. So as I would understand, the most important thing is in this report would be to know that it's going to be email communication analysis. Afterwards, we see the percentage of the opened emails and everything else is complementary, but I don't think it really is truly the case. So I would really pay attention on what we are accentuating on, and thus making it much easier to follow through the data telling story. And yeah, I'm going to repeat myself again about the colors. Two things: keep consistency of the color usage and keep your eye on contrast. Because here the gray colors and the light greens are really blending into with the light turquoise greenish of the background color, and it makes it much harder to read. So it's nice to use colors in the background to make it more lively and more unique, but they shouldn't fight the visuals, that's for sure. Yes, turned out sounding a bit more negative. It's not that negative. I'm just very picky when it comes to visuals, aesthetics, and usability.
I mean, you are a design guy, right? So it makes sense that these things kind of
Yeah,
eat you up.
more than 20 years of dealing with usability and design has its consequences. So, yes.
Yeah. And the last thing that I just noticed, and this comes back to what Ancho already mentioned about the color consistency. For example, this is something you can see straight away, for example, right here, right? The author is utilizing report page tooltip, which is a great addition to it. But if you look at the tooltip, you can see, okay, positive is green, neutral is yellow, and negative is red. Whereas if you look just right above it, one visual, those colors are completely different. So which one is which? So is the positive neutral? Is it positive? Is the positive green, or is it? So, you know, it's kind of mixed feelings about it. So color consistency is very important, especially when it comes to these traffic lights. So red, yellow, and green, those are very important colors which need to emphasize one specific thing, and then you have to stick to it. You can't really switch it all around. All right. But other than that, it's a great report. You have gotten into the top 5, so congratulations to you once more. And I think it's time for the last submission that has gotten into the top 5. So the last submission that has gotten into the top 5 comes from 𝗤𝗄𝗄𝗃𝗏. So congratulations to you. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So one of the first things that I noticed whenever I open up this report straight away is there's a lot of KPI cards. And it's one of the trickiest parts about building a Power BI report, because people are usually tending to kind of look for KPIs, right? That's the definition, key performance indicators. That's something you want to focus on. But having 12 of them is a bit of an overkill in one single page. I would probably separate them maybe between different visuals so I can showcase different dimensions or different sort of connections between them. But in this case, I think it's a little bit too much. That's my personal opinion here. I still like the fact that you have the timeline, for example. This is what Ansh mentioned as sort of you have a slicer right here, which allows you to filter out the date and time, but you have a timeline here. There's no need to have both of them because they essentially do the same thing. I can either select the start and end date right here, or I can create a selection. It's exactly the same behavior. There's no need to sort of replicate the same thing twice. So, but the cross-chart filtering is there, and that's all good about it. You have the possibility to drill down to cross-chart filter. You have the possibility to use the decomposition tree to also switch between, for example, different other subsegments to see, for example, how professional segment's doing or middle-level management's doing. So that's all good. As for the slicers itself, this is one of the things I mentioned for, I think it was the first report. Be careful on how it fits within the page. Because, for example, one thing you usually want to do is you want to make sure that the slicers look and feel similar. Whereas in this case, you can see there's a bit of a size difference. And the other thing is, again, it seems like it's getting cut off. Like it's getting squashed down to the bottom. So visually, it seems like, you know, it kind of was pushed in there, even though you have enough room right here. You could have just easily brought it up a little bit higher and increased it or the height of the slicer itself. You have the possibility of switching between the pages, which is great, which is what I like. And there's sort of the buttons itself, I actually not against the design of it, because it kind of makes it feel like it's a transition between different layers of information. So you started off with overview, then you're going to the next one, and then a smaller segment of it. The colors are here, which I think is a great selection for positive green, negative red, neutral is gray. So that's all good. If we go to employee analysis, and this page, the one thing that I kind of got stuck on and didn't quite get the usability for it was this visual right here. The main reason for it is you're utilizing images, which is not a bad addition, right? Because images allow you to associate things a little bit faster. But in this case, the images were used for the wrong purpose. Because, for example, you can see we have opened with the same image being used for an employee based on the data. That's probably one line of data. And yes, uses the same image, right? I don't know how this person is connected to opened or yes. It's just doesn't click to me. And the other thing is, think about the placement of things. What I mean by this is you can see that the value label is left to be on top of the node even though you're using images, and the label kind of disappears. I mean, if I zoom out a bit, I think everyone can agree with me that you don't really see the labels. And even if I zoom in, it's not that easy to read them because images, they have these, for example, every single person we can see here has black hair, right? Black font on top of it doesn't really go together. So maybe create a background for the labels, or make a different color or place them outside, but don't leave them like this where it doesn't allow the user to read the chart straight away. Other than that, I think it's a good report. It still has a few things that I would probably rework or reconsider. Primarily, one of them would be the excess use of KPI cards, because like I said, I think 12 is a bit of an overkill. But maybe that's just me. Ansh, from your side?
Yeah. Well, most of the things you have touched upon, but I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. I really like how the basic concept of the report storytelling starts. Just like we see it's going to be an email engagement analysis. We see that we are in an overview. And this is where it abrupts me, because I would expect to see that filter panel. So I see that we are going to be talking about specific device or person. And that is disconnected from this story on the top. So it loses this chain of the reaction of how we are watching at the data. So I would definitely reconsider doing the filtering on the top. So it's just following the flow. Other thing which I like that you did, but I don't agree with the way you have done it, is those insights next to the visuals. It's a really nice thing to have such an insight, but I would not show directly on the report page itself, but have either like an insight button next to the visual where you can open it, or just have it on a hover. Very useful information, but it's taking a lot of real estate from report, making it a bit more busy. And also I can give everyone who has joined this webinar a small hint that is one of the points that is checked upon when evaluating reports for those contests. If you have an excessive amounts of text, even if it's useful, you will get a little a little lower score for your report, because this is pretty much the same story as with products. If it's a good product, you don't need to explain how to use it. Same goes with the data. If you have visualized it good enough, the insight is just additional thing for someone. It shouldn't be the main way of conveying the message to the report user. So that's one thing. What else? Not sure. I think this is it. It was a very, very good beginning, just slightly changing position and viewing and hiding some of the elements. It would be good. There is one more thing, and this goes for this report and some other as well. Spacing between the elements, as we have seen in some of the other reports, it really does make the report look more professional and more I'm not really sure how to say this, but if you have the elements misplaced with different spacings floating around, and there is this like really strange unused space in the middle between the combo chart and this inside part, it makes it look a little more messy than it should be. So if you would align those blocks symmetrically, same spacing everywhere around, hide things that are not necessary at the first glance, would be very, very good report. Yes, this is pretty much it from me for now.
All right, so we have gotten to the whole top 5. So congratulations to all of those who have gotten into the top 5. And as usually, right, a little bit of more anticipation. We're all here to see who actually won the challenge. So with a little bit of a drum roll, the winner for this month's challenge is 𝗤𝗏. Congratulations, 𝗤𝗏. Like I said, I'm very happy for your progress, and it was a great report. It's simple, not too overly complicated, and that's what the reporting should be really all about, right? Simple, interactive, you're able to cross-chart filter, you're able to find insights, and just navigate through the report without the excess of, a lot of different elements, so users can easily navigate it. So congratulations to you. I know we're running a little bit out of time, but there are a few questions, and actually one of the questions is for you, Ansh. So Ansh, do you have some practical tips or how to choose the right color palette for the reports and how to ensure the colors have enough contrast?
Regarding the right colors is going to be a difficult one. So I'm going to put it as a second part of my answer. Regarding contrast, you can Google this, but there are some common usability contrast ratios that should be used. And it is not only for the Power BI reports, it is throughout all user interface design in the world. It doesn't matter if it's digital or physical. If you are not able to read, either the text is too small or there is no contrast or you cannot see the difference between the visuals categories, the same thing. So you can easily check that on a Google. I don't remember the specific minimum required contrast ratios between the elements, but the data is on the Google for sure, so you can search that. If you want to go even a step further, there are additional guidelines for accessibility, so you can make sure that your report can be used for the people with visual impairments, meaning the partial ones. Because I've been previously working on applications which have had to be compliant with visually impaired and partially visually impaired people. There's a lot of information to consume before you go into that, but you can definitely find that information. Regarding the colors themselves, as I mentioned before, the most important is make your colors useful. If you are not going down the route where each color means something, stick to monochrome. That's the cheating, I know, but if you want a visually pleasing and subtle report where you cannot go wrong with the meaning of the color, just go monochrome. We have done that with IVs in the past, especially if the category amount is not that big and you are like looking more like one cut of this data storytelling pie, you can definitely go down that route. If you have, and regarding if like, I really like the one of the top 5 reports, the pastel tones. There are a lot of color generators online. So if you either have some of your corporate colors you want to use, you can just put them in as one of the base points. And online color generator is going to generate the rest of the colors for you. That's quite simple. And I think I will take a chance when answering this question to point out that this and many of the things that I have said in this webinar are covered in one of our videos in a ZoomCharts YouTube channel. I think there is a playlist regarding creating drill down reports. A couple of them are covered by Ivis about the technical part of building it, but there is one part where I am not speaking, but the content comes from me about all those structural design, choosing the colors, reading directions, and other things regarding the user experience and design of the Power BI reports. So if you're interested in those things, definitely go to the ZoomCharts YouTube channel. Check for that video. It should be very easy to find. There's plenty of useful information compacted into within the thing. Yeah, a couple of minutes. I'm not really sure what was the amount of it, but it's very compact. And you will find, if not all, then quite a few answers to your questions there.
All right. Yeah, so we had another comment regarding the color palettes, which was something I wanted to add, but you already covered that. Other than that, I think we have answered every single one of the questions. So I guess there's nothing else to kind of go through right now. So I guess that's it. So thank you all for joining today. We hope that the session itself was interesting, insightful, and you actually got something useful out of it. And if you are interested in participating in any of the upcoming challenges, feel free to check our website. There's 2 challenger partners that we're cooperating with. That's 𝗵𝘃𝗶 Analytics and Onyx Data. So you can participate in both of them. Those are monthly challenges. So every single month there's a new challenge, different data sets, and different kind of approaches that we're taking there. You can always, like Ansha already mentioned, also check our social media. There's not just information about drill down reports. There's a lot of useful information, tips and tricks that we post throughout different timelines regarding different visuals, different aspects of the report, and so forth. And other than that, thank you so much for your time. And Ansh, I don't know, any last words from you?
And never stop participating like Toyin did.
I mean, persistence is key, right?
Yes.
You get better, you make better reports, you increase your skill levels, you get more recognition out of it. And trust me, the better reports you create, the easier it's going to be to land a job in the data analysis field if you're not already working there.
Yes, and as more reports you create, the better and better you're going to get at it. So
absolutely,
it's just a matter of time and trying. So everyone has been there, and who has not will be. Keep trying, and you will get the result sooner or later.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone, and keep participating and creating amazing reports. And hopefully in the next challenge, top 5 review, your report is going to be one of those. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.